Morning. Looks like I'm live. So this morning I just wanted to go on a kind of a rant, a ramble, monologue. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday. I met this traveler or businessman, and he travels quite a bit more than I do or has traveled. And I love meeting people like that because he's very open about traveling and where he's been and his experiences. And one of the things we were discussing is different countries about how you feel safety wise or just comfortability or just ease of movement. And um, one of the reasons I didn't move to the Philippines was brought up again in a video with CJ Abroad. I don't know if he changed his channel name. But anyway, CJ was talking about a crime report in the Philippines. And I look at that kind of objectively, and I'm like, there's crime everywhere. And they're reporting on it because it's a tourist, and that's newsworthy because it's a tourist. But I think the difference for me is not the fact that crime is a little higher against tourists there in the Philippines than many places I go, or significantly higher than many places I go. I mean, a lot of places I go, and that was a conversation yesterday on the roof with this gentleman. Is so many places it's like they will commit 1,000 crimes against their neighbors or their fellow countrymen before they go after a tourist or a foreigner. Part of it's culture, part of it is the legal system and the dependency on tourism. These are the conclusions he and I were coming to as we discussed this. But the other part about it for me, and because we were talking a lot about a recent trip I made to Egypt, and that's coming out in the next video, about how everywhere I went, I had people coming after me, not coming after me nefariously, but coming after me, um, they want something from you. They want your time at the minimum, and they want your money, and they're not really giving me the opportunity to say no. And so he was talking about a country, and he's like, "Whatever you do, don't take a taxi from the airport." Because I was asking about a couple countries that have been on my to-do list, and he'd been there a couple times and recently, and he's like, "No matter what, do not get in a taxi at the airport." And it was so, brought up so many other points of the conversation. But then I'm listening to CJ, and he mentions this, you know, crime report in the news, and it really drove home something to me that I just wanted to kind of get down and get out before I lose the thought. Is one of the reasons the Philippines didn't really stick with me as a permanent place is everywhere I've been in the Philippines, there's always somebody wanting something from me. And so it adds that little degree of, um, you know, attention, so to speak. And then you hear the random, low propensity to happen crime report against foreigners, and they make an issue out of it because it is, foreigners. It looks like somebody's watching. Good morning if you're watching. Um, so they make an issue out of it, and then in the news a little bit, or you hear about it, or these rumblings, and then you've constantly, or I constantly had people just everywhere I've been, I've never lived in the Philippines. I've been there on vacation many times and traveling, but everywhere I go, somebody is yelling at me or, to grab my attention. And having that constant eyeballs like focused on you creates an uneasiness. And so we were talking about like where we're at here now, everybody just leaves you alone. You walk down the street, you're just another person. And it's really beautiful. Japan was very much that way. Japan, I'd walk down the street and nobody would, if I stopped there and looked lost, people would stop and help me. One of on my first trip to Japan, I was trying to sort out this train situation. It didn't have the automated kiosks. It was old school. And I was totally lost. I didn't know anything about Japan. I, didn't do any research. I just, you know, had a layover that I kicked out till like a week, and so I was confused. And this old lady that spoke no English, didn't come up to my shoulder in height, very small in stature. It just comes up to a total stranger, and helps me with the train. Like literally grabbing my ticket and figuring out where I'm going, and then pointing and like, and then she's like money, and just out of the blue, randomly taking her time to make the effort to help me. But if I am just being myself, you know, and sufficient or competent in Japan, pretty much everybody just leaves you alone unless you're sitting there with, and I've learned to in different areas where how to sit and attract people to actually sit and chat and talk. But I think the Philippines, the main reason I don't really feel comfortable there is, I'm clearly not a Filipino, and I clearly, don't hide the fact that I'm from America, or, I'm not over there like browbeating people with it. I do have a shirt with an American flag that I wear once in a great while, but, it's pretty obvious, uh, the way I speak and walk and the way I carry myself that I'm an American, and I'm not, I do everything I can to be as culturally sensitive to other places and respectful, you know, extremely respectful of people. So it's not like I'm out there, cowboy hat and boots kicking kids or dogs like some of these jerks, right? Uh, but nevertheless, right, if I'm walking down the street, you know, chances are people are going to guess I'm American. And so in the Philippines, that means I'm a target for opportunity, right? A target, not a target of opportunity, but a target for opportunity. An opportunity for them to make something, an opportunity for them to do something. And I don't mean nefariously, they're just aggressive at, you know, sales, aggressive, trying to promote their business or learn something or help, or, and there's just never a moment of peace. And when you combine that with the random over publicized crime or the whispers and rumors of crime, it really creates an uneasy feeling that is deep down and hard to sort out why it's there. Because all the Filipinos I meet in person, I really, not all, but the vast majority, I really enjoy their company. They're really nice, sweet people, and very generous and helping in many cases. So, I was struggling with this idea of why I don't feel comfortable there. And then I realized it's, putting those two conversations that hit me at different times in short succession together, I realize it's because every time I walk down the street, every time I go to the mall, every time I go anywhere, it's, people are trying to grab my attention. And I mentioned, I don't know if I posted it or not, but I mentioned I was walking down the street one time and this old man runs across the street and he's like trying to talk to me, and I'm in a hurry. I've got some things I need to get done. And he reaches up and even grabbed, my beard was longer, and he reached up, grabbed my beard, and I had to get him off my beard and tell him to leave me alone. And he did not like that. I did not like doing it. Yeah, yeah, it is hard to block that stuff out, but I had to, get that guy away from me because I had to go somewhere. I was on a clock. And when I came back a few weeks later, expressed very passionately how upset he was with me for not taking the time to talk to him on the side of the street. And no awareness at all that, you know, of anything I was doing. It was all about he wanted, "Hey, good morning." Um, it was all about what he wanted in that moment in time, and so it wasn't, a comfortable situation for me when it happened, or when he approached me again a second time to tell me he was unhappy with me. But having these two conversations about, uh, freedom of movement and how people leave you alone or see you as an opportunity to conduct some sort of business, you know, and I was telling this gentleman when I was in Egypt, I was in the Mall of Egypt, and I'm walking down the mall, and people would come out of the store from the far side of the mall, cross the big walkway of the mall, and grab me and try to get me into their store, and how uneasy that feels. And then you go out on the street after that, and you're having that same feeling of people coming at you. And again, so it was really nice having a conversation with him. Yeah. Sorry that the message passed by real quick, but that was funny. Uh, um, anyway, but it's frustrating to me, and it was nice having a conversation with him about these different places he's been, where he had a similar experience where people are just constantly on you. Oh, Egypt is hard. I loved Egypt, but different areas are very hard because they're very desperate for work, and uh, so and that's kind of goes back into what I was getting at with this whole thought I wanted to get out of my head was when people are desperate for work and then you hear rumors of crime, it just leaves an unsettling feeling in me. Um, but I will tell you, I was very happy to hear a couple countries I've been looking at. I'm definitely moving farther up on the I need to get there list because talking to him, this gentleman, and and kind of sorting out these things about what makes me feel uneasy and what makes me feel more comfortable as far as interacting with people. It's giving me more tools to filter my future travels and to kind of suss out like where do I want to go and where do I want to avoid. Because I mentioned it a long time ago. I went through the whole hungry bear travel, but I'm a pretty uh, I'm looking for the easy traveling. I'm not looking for the constantly, shooing away, people that are trying to grab me or sell me things or shove me in a cab, um, things like that. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that thought out of my head because I didn't want to disappear and go unrecorded. And it's an interesting thing for me, it's spurred a whole, I can't even think of the word now. See, I really need my coffee. Coffee doesn't open for another 12 minutes. 15 minutes. So I'm really wanting my coffee. And it's a beautiful morning. Sun's starting to rise here. Um, Starting to get some color in the trees. And the boats are still pretty quiet. There's a big old plane flying by there. I don't know if that'll come out in that camera, but people starting to stir and get their steps in. Yeah, anyway, I don't know. I don't know what people's thoughts are. I'm going to put this up in the channel. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why the Philippines didn't really sink home with me. And I think it would be different if I lived in a house like out of the city or in a suburb or something. I wouldn't be dealing with in the tourist areas. And that's one thing I noticed in Egypt is the tourist areas I did not like at all. And once I got out of the Giza tourist area, I really started to enjoy Egypt a lot more. And I had a lot of well-off Egyptians tell me, just hire somebody to, and I'm meeting all these. My second week there, I was meeting a lot of uh, well-off Egyptians. I mean, people, not with cars, but with nice cars. Send me a message from Brian. Yeah, it turns the scammers off. It doesn't turn off the hawkers, what do they call them? The barkers. In Japan, it's funny. There's a couple neighborhoods where they actually have like signs and like plastered on the poles and the ground. No barkers allowed. So they're not allowed to go out and, very touristy areas, like local touristy areas, and they're not allowed to have barkers out there, like, barking at you as you walk down the street. Um, and that's how Japan dealt with it. But the scammers, you know, I don't have so much a problem with the scammers other than taxis when you have to take a taxi. But it's the barkers and the people that just want to, come at you. And what I learned in Egypt was I've I've had that though, and that's what I was saying is, everywhere I've been, I constantly get people barking at me um, in the fills. And what I was getting to is what I learned in Egypt is in Giza, I hated it because I was constantly, you know, uh, constantly approached like nonstop. And then I got to Giza or to Cairo, and in part of Cairo, I was approached nonstop. In other parts of Cairo, I was just ignored, and I was able to walk around. And that's when I started meeting some really, fabulous Egyptians. And it was strange to me to have these people wanting to give me their phone number, and they're like, "Look, when you come back to Egypt, call me, you know, and I'll find you a driver or I'll find you a person, and they'll just stay with you and escort you around Egypt." Um, yeah, exactly. Um, and that was really interesting to me, you know, like one gentleman that really struck home, he can come stay with me next time you come here, come stay a few days at my house. And, he doesn't know me from anybody. I'm just another guy that got off the plane sitting outside the pyramids. And, he's wearing shoes that, he's wearing $200 shoes, and I'm sitting there like, you know, basically a street bum compared to him. And he's like, "Come stay at my place and you'll have a totally different time." And so that was kind of a reminder, and it got me to think more about the Philippines that, maybe part of the reason I feel that way is just the places I was going in the Philippines were the tourist places. And so maybe, you know, that feeling of constantly being approached and constantly being grabbed. Hey, good afternoon. Yeah, I love the view here. That's the one thing about this hotel that I am gonna miss, and kind of one of the reasons why I decided to do a little live stream here before breakfast. Is this view is just waking up to this every morning is a gift. Yeah, and that's the thing that really drove me crazy is those vendors, and they don't understand no. Like, I'm more than happy if somebody's trying to sell things. Uh, it's Dubai. Uh, I had no idea how cheap Dubai was. But I'm more than happy with people trying to sell me things. But when you say no 5 times and they're still coming at you, that's when I have a problem. And like the vendors in Angeles, those guys selling cigarettes and things, you know, it drives me nuts. And finally, I just like, start getting back in their face. I'm like, why are you calling me a druggie? Why are you calling me a druggie? I'm not. And I'm like, no, you're sitting here, trying to sell me illegal drugs. Why do you assume I'm a druggie? And they don't like that, and then you start calling them a drug dealer and they don't like that at all. And that's, I wouldn't do that any other place but there. And it's just because, you know, if they would just listen to no, I'd be fine with it. But it was interesting, thinking about all the different places in retrospect where I've been and the places where I feel the most comfortable. It's not that there aren't barkers or vendors or people approaching you, but it's not nonstop, right? Or excuse me, yeah, it's not nonstop. I think I said that wrong, but it's places where like Thailand. I didn't have the same issue in Thailand. Yeah, there's areas, the markets where people were constantly coming at me. And even Malaysia, in some of the markets, there's very aggressive barkers and people coming at you. But most of Malaysia, I can walk around without, people demanding their time on. Yeah, I'm so excited to go to Vietnam. That's that's happening a little bit later this year. I am so excited about Vietnam. I've heard so many good things. Nice. Yeah, I don't know, but that was kind of a real eye-opening moment. And then hearing CJ talk about the random crime report, and I think those crime reports, I don't think they're that, it poses that great of a threat, but it does create a feeling when it's being called out so publicly, and like in Angeles, you have the constant eyeballs on you from the trike drivers and the vendors, and and there was no peace, right? There was nowhere I could go that I found as a tourist in the Philippines. There was nowhere I could go where I wasn't being hounded by people. I remember walking out of a hotel in El Nido, and every morning I was there for like a week. Yeah, La Union looks like a fun place. But I walk out of this hotel every morning, and the same, um, wow, that's crazy. The same trike drivers would yell at me every morning, "Trike, trike, trike," and you try to ignore them, and they just yell louder. And it's like, do you think I don't know what a trike is? Um, and one day I'll practice my story about the taxi drivers in Bucharest because I'm surprised I didn't lose my teeth. I got pretty sarcastic with some taxi drivers, but that just that constant, no matter where I went, and it may all have been just because it was tourist areas. I think your name, yeah, exactly. That drives me nuts. And I forgot where I was, but they were saying something. Uh, I forgot where I was. I was somewhere, and the word they would use kind of sounded like Jeff. And so, I don't broadcast my name quite a bit. So this one guy, every time I walked by, he would say, I can't remember what country it was, but he would say something and it sounded like Jeff. So I would turn reflexively, like, who's calling my name? But anyway, that was all I wanted to kind of record and get on. Thank you all for coming by, saying hi. Uh, Meth. Yeah, maybe. That's too funny. Sorry. It wasn't California. Yeah, Joe is real common. And thankfully my name's not Joe because I hear that it's not just the Philippines. Yeah, you got me laughing good because taking me back home to California there. Walking through the park or walking to city council. Math, math. Yeah, that's so funny. Can't tell you how many times I was going to a city council meeting and people trying to sell me drugs right outside. Welcome to California. But yeah, anyway. Um too funny. I'm gonna get moving. I'm hoping coffee will be open as soon as I get dressed here. I will tell you though, off season, I was really surprised how affordable Dubai is. So, the hotels I'm in, I'm under $40 a night, and uh, there's some more expensive hotels I've been to, and I'm going to, but just to go enjoy a little bit of luxury. But I was really stunned, and like I don't know if I mentioned in the video the other day, but I was down on the other side of town. I wanted to get my hair cut, and it was 250 dirhams. Um, 240, 250. Um, yeah, Dubai is really affordable. I was surprised. But then I'm over here on this side of town where more of the workers live, and it was 5 dirhams. So 5 dirhams is under $2, you know, so I just to me, and food's the same way, right? If I get a soda at the store, it's 2.50. If I get a soda at the hotel, it's um, two 2.5 dirhams, not 250. If I get a soda at the hotel, it's like 20 or 25 dirhams. So it's like a 10 to 1. It's always that way at hotels, but restaurants, the same thing, right? A soda is like 20 or 30 dirham. Beer is like, insane. Alcohol's not a big thing here. So if you're a drinker, um, just be prepared for that. But I've had some really amazing affordable food here. The malls and some of the I haven't done a lot of tourist things. I haven't done a lot, um, but I was impressed with the affordability of Dubai in the off season. So if it's ever on your list, look far out and book in advance, and I think you'll find it very affordable. The one thing is some of the big attractions are closed in the off season, but a lot of them aren't. As long as you can, as long as the hot, dry weather doesn't bother you, it shouldn't be an issue. There have been some days where it's been really humid though, so it kind of depends which way the wind's blowing, whether it's going to be dry or humid. But that's my experience, and I am definitely thinking about Dubai this time next year. I think August. I finally got some blue sky today and yesterday. Before it's just been covered in dust and gloom. Uh, but as long as you stay indoors, it doesn't matter much. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by, and hope you have a great day. And hope to see some of you soon. Take care.